Good morning, everybody. We are going live here with the Central Montana Church of Christ, and I have a little special gift for you here to see this morning. Everybody thinks of Easter, they think of these little guys. Got some new chicks that were born in our house here, and they're hanging out with us today. So this is kind of what most folks think of when they think of Easter. They think of bunnies and baby chicks, and they are cute. I mean, goodness, they doing very well, and better not touch them too much. They fly out and cause a stir. But we are going to talk about hope today, and these little guys kind of remind us, and as does spring, about there is hope, that we can get out of a dark winter, and that spring can come and bloom. So I'm going to have my production assistants here take these little guys before they get out. Don't let them fall. All right. So there's our show and tell for today, and just a little bit of a teaser about what we're going to talk about today. But hope, it's important. We've got lots of things facing our country right now that would give us reason to not have hope. And really that's why I kind of latched on to this idea of hope. Of course, Easter Sunday, I mean, that's a perfect time to talk about such. But we've got lots of things going on in our country, as you know, with the virus and just lots of different challenges. We have folks who are out of jobs. We have people whose hours are being cut. We have folks that are required to go to work that maybe wish they didn't have to because they are getting exposed. We have friends that are facing cancer. We have friends that are working over in hospitals in New York and other places that are affected by the virus to a much greater extent than we have it here in Montana. So there's a lot of reasons to be down, a lot of reasons to be upset, and rightly so, I guess, with what's going on. But having hope, having an idea that there is hope in the future, and that really that hope lasts no matter what is going on in our lives, whether it is cancer or whether it is loss of a job or family difficulties, there's always hope. In fact, Alexander Pope said, "Hope springs eternal in the human breast." You know, it's something that gives us joy, it gives us pleasure to think about good things and to hope on something. So today it may be broken dreams, it might be a lost job, less hours, less income, maybe it's your health, maybe it's a hope for a vaccine that we can combat this virus with. Maybe it's just a hope for life to return to normal. But today I want to talk about that hope. I want you to latch on to that hope, and then something greater that can give us true hope for eternity. Jesus, in John 10:10, it says, in fact, Jesus came so that we could have, and the Bible says, life and have it abundantly. And today I want to say that we can have hope and have it abundantly, because that's what we have through Christ. He gives us life, and He gives us the hope that we can live with Him eternally. Jesus came as a man. He was just like you and I. He lived on this earth. He had hopes and dreams that maybe in a physical sense that he struggled with, that maybe he wanted to be something in terms of a different kind of worker in the world. Maybe he had brothers that gave him a hard time. You know, he was a person just like us. He had stomach aches. He was sick. He was tearful and emotional at different times. And he came and lived on this earth as God. And if you don't know that part of the story of Christ, then you have to really start at the beginning and recognize that He came to us as deity, not just as a man on this earth, but as God and man at the same time. He lived among His brothers and sisters and His mom and dad. He lived among His community. And then ultimately, He chose to begin a ministry. And this ministry would be what we have today in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And you can read all about His life and His ministry and what He did for us. And really today we're going to jump all the way over to the time of His death. You know, we call this, a lot of folks call this Holy Week. It's a time to focus on holy things. And I think that's right and proper to be able to focus on holy things any time of the year. So today we talk about, well, in fact, we'll go back a little bit. We talked about Good Friday. Some folks call it Holy Saturday. And today we have the resurrection, a Sunday of life. And really, if you think about Friday, there's a lot of faith traditions that I've gotten to know in the last years that they celebrate Friday as a very somber time, a time when Christ has been crucified, and things are just a lot of unknowns. A lot of his disciples were running away. It's kind of a lament. It's a sad time. And then on Saturday, you have this in between, this waiting time. And really, that's where a lot of folks are in our world today. Maybe they're in the in between stage of hope. They're waiting. They're waiting for it to come. And then on Sunday, you have Easter. You have the day of resurrection, the day of life. And that's a day that we rejoice and we say, He is risen. Indeed, He is risen. So today, as you think about Christ living among us as a man, but also as God, and then all the way up to His crucifixion. When I think of the word hope, I recognize that really God came and sent Jesus to the hopeless. He didn't send Christ to the people. In fact, He sent Christ to everyone, but specifically to the hopeless, the downtrodden, the poor, those that were in great need for whatever reason. Maybe they were homeless, those who were misfits in society. And He did not send Christ in a way to the rich and the powerful. We see that throughout the Gospels, how He talks about that. Now we know anyone can come to salvation. But there is a special place in Christ's heart for the hopeless. And so that kind of struck me last night as I was just pondering this message again and thinking about that, and that's who Christ came for, was the hopeless. Not for those that think they have everything figured out. You know, if you're a wealthy person and you rely on your wealth, that's not what Christ is here for. He wants you to recognize your dependence and the need for Him. So today, as we think about those that need Christ, we all need Christ. And He came for the hopeless. Whether that's you, whether you think you have everything figured out in life with your job and your relationships, your income, whatever it might be, we need Christ and we need Him every day. There's a hymn that we sing, "My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness." Our hope is built on Christ, and through His crucifixion is how we have that hope. Hebrews 2:14 says, "Since the children have flesh and blood, He too shared in their humanity, so that by His death He might break the power of him who holds the power of death, that is, the devil, and free those who all their lives were held in slavery by their fear of death. For surely it is not angels He helps, but Abraham's descendants. For this reason He had to be made like them, fully human in every way, in order that He might become a merciful and faithful high priest in service to God, and that He might make atonement for the sins of His people. Because He Himself suffered when He was tempted, He is able to help those who are being tempted." Those verses in Hebrews remind me that Jesus was like you and I. We are the same. We walk the same streets. You can go over to the Holy Lands, as they call them, and you can walk on some of the same streets that Jesus probably walked on. Maybe you can go to Golgotha and see the place where He was crucified. A lot of it's unknown in specific areas, but a lot of folks can go and you can see a lot of the places that Jesus would have seen. Garden of Gethsemane. He walked, He talked, He felt, He hurt. Just like you and I. And He suffered, but without sin. And that's why we have Easter, the resurrection. Ultimately, He was led to the cross. Mark 15 talks about that. They brought Jesus to the place called Golgotha. Then they offered Him wine mixed with myrrh, but He did not take it, and they crucified Him, dividing up His clothes. They cast lots to see what each would get. It was 9 a.m. when they crucified Him. The written notice of the charge against Him read, "The King of the Jews." They crucified 2 rebels with Him, one on His right, one on His left. Those who passed by hurled insults at Him, shaking their heads and saying, "So, you who are going to destroy the temple and build it up in 3 days, come down from the cross and save yourself." In the same way, the chief priests and the teachers of the law mocked Him among themselves. "He saved others," they said, "but He can't save Himself. Let this Messiah, this King of Israel, come down now from the cross, that we may see and believe." Those crucified with Him also heaped insults on Him. At noon, darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m. And at 3 p.m, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" When some of those standing near heard this, they said, "Listen, he's calling Elijah." Someone ran, filled a sponge with wine vinegar, put it on a staff, and offered it to Jesus to drink. Now leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah comes to take him down. With a loud cry, Jesus breathed his last. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome bought spices so that they might go to anoint Jesus' body. Very early on the first day of the week, just after sunrise, they were on their way to the tomb, and they asked each other, "Who will roll the stone away from the entrance of the tomb?" But when they looked up, they saw the stone, which was very large, had been rolled away. As they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe, sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. "Don't be alarmed," he said. "You're looking for Jesus the Nazarene, who was crucified. He has risen. He is not here. See the place where they laid him. But go, tell his disciples and Peter, he is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him, just as he told you." This Easter Sunday, we have hope. We have hope that because of Christ, because of his life that he lived, because of the living just as you and I did, that he could know us and he could know us well. And that we could look to him as someone who's walked the same streets, who's experienced the same temptations. And we could also have hope that he chose to die. He chose to die for you. He chose to die for me. We have that opportunity today to honor him for that. And if it was just the end of the story with his death, it would have been a good man, and we would have honored him for what he did. But it's not the end of the story. We know he sits at the right hand of the Father, and that the earth has been made his footstool. He's in charge. He is reigning, and he will reign forever. And we have that opportunity to live with him. We have that opportunity to be gracious and loving to him, and really to participate in that hope that he has given us. So I hope today that you take that opportunity, that you put your hope in him. It was been 2,000 years ago when everyone thought that hope was lost. Those disciples went about with their heads hung low, waiting between Friday and Sunday. And there seems to be indications that some of the women were not as, they kind of maybe had an indication that there was something special that was going to happen. But it was probably a surprise to all of them to some degree. They just didn't fully understand everything that was going on there with Christ. We have that 2020 vision where we can look back and know that Jesus died for us. Today I want you to focus on that. Listen to praise music. I know in our fellowship we listen to a cappella songs, and Praise and Harmony TV on YouTube is a great way to go and just play a bunch of songs if you would like, and just worship all day long with that. There's going to be a communion message. In fact, I've already posted it to our page today. Mr. Caleb Grove created that. So I posted that late last night, and I'll highlight that and bring it up to the top of our page so that you can watch that. And I hope that you would participate in communion today. Lots of communion bread recipes and grape juice of different sorts. So find some of the unleavened bread and find some fruit of the vine, the grape juice that we partake of today, that is a memorial to Christ. And partake of communion together. I wish we could be together. I wish we could spend time in person and hug and shake hands and the like. But today we need to, we're submitting to our authorities, but we're also just being wise and waiting for this virus to pass. But we have hope. We don't live as people that don't have any hope. We live as people who do have hope because of Christ. So I hope that's an encouragement to you today. Go out and live a life that is worthy of Christ and his sacrifice. We can't do that on our own. We have to have his grace and his mercy, and in doing so that we could truly put our full hope in him. I hope your day is blessed, and happy Easter.